Welcome, the anointed ones. When powerful people start whispering your name in rooms you've never entered, just know the story has already shifted. That's exactly what's happening right now. A circle of billionaires, people who usually treat human beings like line items, have paused their conversations, lowered their voices, and said your name with the kind of caution they normally reserve for global crises. And the wild part? They're not talking about your failures, your past, or your weaknesses. They're talking about the one thing they never expected to see in someone they can't influence, your unexplainable rise. Before we go any further, here's a fact that might shock you. Billionaires spend more money studying human behavior and future trends than entire governments do. They hire analysts, psychologists, futurists, and teams of researchers just to predict who will shape the next era of influence. Somehow, your name ended up in their data pool, and not as a warning, but as an anomaly, a glitch in the system they can't quantify, a variable they didn't anticipate. You've become the person they can't fully understand, can't calculate, and definitely can't control. And here's where the humor comes in. These are people who can predict stock markets, control industries, and move economies with a phone call, yet you've got them staring at each other like, who signed off on this spiritual plot twist? Something about you disrupted their psychological spreadsheets. You weren't supposed to rise with no backing. You weren't supposed to develop discernment without access. You weren't supposed to survive experiences that would have sent most people into permanent hiding. Yet here you are, calm, grounded, and shining, like you got the cheat codes to life's chaos. So now, they're paying attention. Not publicly, of course. Billionaires don't clap for the chosen ones. They just watch quietly when someone steps onto a level they can't buy their way into. And what they've decided about you, it's bigger, deeper, and more revealing than you think. Let's get into what they said and why it changes everything. Number one, they realized you're the only one who can't be bought, and that scares them more than any price tag. Billionaires are used to a world where everything bends to money. People bend, rules bend, even morals bend. They're surrounded by individuals who treat loyalty like a rental agreement, available as long as the price is right. So when they came across you, someone who operates on conviction rather than currency, it disrupted their entire sense of control. They weren't prepared to meet a person who can't be bribed, pressured, or lured with shiny promises dressed as opportunities. They realized your decisions aren't shaped by desperation or greed. Your actions come from a foundation of purpose that can't be purchased. That alone shook them more than any competitor or crisis. What they see in you is a level of inner stability they can't manufacture. Your values aren't a marketing strategy. Your integrity wasn't handed to you by privilege or comfort. You earned it through nights you had no support, seasons where you had to build yourself from raw survival, and moments where choosing the hard path was the only way to stay true to who you are. That makes you a different type of force, one they can't predict or manipulate. And in their world, unpredictability is dangerous. The more they watched, the more it dawned on them that you're not impressed by their lifestyle. That bothered them. They're used to people trying to impress them, chase their attention, or treat them like the final level of success. But you move like someone who has already reached a completely different kind of wealth, one rooted in self-respect, clarity, and spiritual grounding. There's nothing they can offer that would make you trade your identity for access. They realized you're the one person who won't fold under pressure, the one person who won't sell out to feel included, the one person whose soul won't shift for convenience. And that realization forced them to admit something they don't like confronting. All their money, all their influence, all their connections still can't produce the one thing you carry effortlessly: authenticity. That's why they're talking about you. That's why they're watching, and that's why you unsettle their entire system. Number two, They said you don't chase power, yet you generate it everywhere you go. This is the part that threw them off the most. They've built their entire lives around chasing influence, meetings, negotiations, investments, partnerships. Everything is a calculated move to gain more reach, more control, more leverage. So when they observed you, someone who isn't running after status yet somehow commands it naturally, it forced them to rethink their whole understanding of power. They saw a person who doesn't push their identity onto the world, but the world adjusts anyway. You're not loud, but people pay attention. You're not competing, yet you end up in conversations you weren't even present for. That's the kind of presence money can't engineer. What fascinates them most is how you create impact without even trying. They're used to people who crave attention like it's currency. But you navigate life with a kind of internal authority that radiates without performance. It's in how you carry yourself, how you speak, how you handle setbacks. You respond to life with a certain steadiness that people instinctively trust. And trust, real organic trust, is something the wealthy spend billions attempting to gain. They hire teams to build their brand, polish their image, and maintain a persona. Meanwhile, you walk into a place and your authenticity becomes the atmosphere. To them, that kind of power is unsettling because they don't control it. They can't measure it or tame it. It's not the kind of influence built through acquisitions or titles. It's something older, deeper, and more grounded. You generate authority simply by being aligned with who you really are. And every time they tried to figure out the technique behind it, they realized there wasn't one. It's not a strategy. It's your nature. So while they chase spotlight, you carry gravity. While they chase relevance, you carry substance. That's why they're paying attention. Not because you're trying to climb into their world, but because you remind them of a truth they've spent years avoiding. Real power doesn't chase, it emanates, and every room you enter proves it. Number 3. They studied your life and realized you endured storms that would have broken their empires. When they looked at you, they didn't just see a person. They saw a history written in scars and survival. These are people used to controlling the narrative of their lives. They buy solutions, hire experts, and create safety nets to protect themselves from failure, loss, or discomfort. Yet, when they examined your journey, they discovered a reality that no amount of money could have shielded them from. You've walked through circumstances so relentless, so unrelenting, that most people would have crumbled under the pressure. And the irony that stung them the most is that you didn't just survive, you evolved. They realized that while they were building empires, you were building resilience. Their systems protect them from life's raw truths. But you faced the raw truth head-on, without shortcuts or assistance. Nights without rest, betrayals that left marks deeper than any balance sheet, challenges that stripped you to your essence. You endured it all. And each time the world tried to break you, instead of bending, you strengthened. They couldn't reconcile that someone could emerge from chaos, not only unbroken, but more capable, more grounded, more magnetic. What terrified them was not just your survival, it was the power that comes from it. They've never had to be tested like that. Their empires could crumble under the weight of unexpected crises because their resilience is engineered, not earned. They realized that the storms you survived created a type of authority and perspective money can't replicate. You understand fear differently. You respond to adversity with a clarity they will never buy, and that makes you untouchable in ways they can't manufacture. And so they whispered among themselves, astonished, acknowledging that your past, your struggles, and your unwavering spirit are not just stories, they are weapons of influence. They studied the numbers, the opportunities, the connections, yet none of it compared to what you've endured and transformed. You've become proof that true power isn't in wealth or networks, it's in surviving life's fiercest storms and rising with a soul that refuses to break. That's why they're watching. That's why they're cautious. That's why your story unsettles them. Number 4, they admitted you have clarity they can't buy, because yours was earned through wounds, not consultants. What struck them hardest wasn't your confidence or your strength, it was your clarity. The kind of clarity that can't be purchased, packaged, or outsourced. They pay top-tier consultants, strategists, advisors, and experts just to help them think straight. They spend millions figuring out their next move, next investment, next partnership. Yet when they watched you, they saw someone who navigates life with a level of insight that comes from surviving experiences no boardroom could ever analyze. Your clarity wasn't handed to you. It was carved into you by the moments that hurt, disappointed, or reshaped you. You understand people because you've been misjudged. You recognize manipulation because you've been targeted. You spot red flags because you had to learn the hard way. You know what loyalty looks like because you've lived through betrayal. That level of internal intelligence doesn't come from education or money. It comes from healing wounds you never thought would close. They saw that your clarity is rooted in lived truth, not theories or formulas, and that kind of wisdom is rare. While they rely on data and predictive models, you rely on discernment sharpened by your own history. You don't need a panel of experts to tell you who someone really is. You don't need research to determine what environment is safe. You don't need a motivational speech to know when to walk away. Your instincts are accurate because they were trained by real-life battles, not rehearsed scenarios. What shocked them was how fast you pick up on things they need entire teams to detect. You see intentions before people speak. You sense energy before actions unfold. You understand patterns without needing proof. They realized your clarity is a type of intelligence money cannot duplicate. A quiet, sharp intelligence born from surviving what should have destroyed you. And that's what unsettled them. They can buy influence, they can buy information, they can buy access, but they cannot buy the clarity you carry. It's a spiritual, emotional, and psychological wealth that makes you untouchable in ways they'll never understand. And deep down, they know it. Number 5. They're confused because your influence spreads without marketing, algorithms, or sponsorships. This is the part they can't wrap their minds around. In their world, influence is something you pay for. They buy ads, they buy reach, they buy attention. Every move they make is backed by a team, strategists, analysts, brand managers, working to amplify their presence. Yet here you are, someone with no PR machine behind you, no paid campaigns, no carefully curated image, and your name moves through people faster than anything their money can manufacture. They watched and realized your influence is organic. People talk about you because they feel something, not because they're paid to feel something. To them, that's unsettling. They've spent years trying to master influence like it's a formula, but you exist outside the formula. Your presence doesn't need promotion because it's rooted in something real. People connect with you because they sense truth in you, and truth, real truth, travels with its own momentum. It reaches places your voice hasn't even touched yet. You don't chase attention. Attention finds you. You don't force your message. Your energy carries it for you. And that defies every rule they've been taught about power. What shocks them the most is how consistent your influence is. They're used to hype cycles, big today, gone tomorrow. But you're not trending, you're imprinting. That's why people remember you. That's why your words stick. That's why your presence leaves a mark long after you leave. Influence that comes from authenticity doesn't fade. It grows quietly, naturally, without needing a spotlight. And they hate that they can't control it or copy it. They've learned that you don't need algorithms because you resonate. You don't need sponsorships because you embody value. You don't need networking events because your spirit does the networking for you. Every person who encounters you becomes a witness, and every witness becomes a carrier of your energy. The truth is, they're fascinated and threatened at the same time. Because if someone like you, someone without their resources, can create this kind of impact simply by being aligned with your purpose, it exposes a truth they've spent years avoiding. Influence built on authenticity will always outperform influence built on strategy, and you're living proof of that. Number 6. They noticed you walk with a confidence they only mimic on stage. What stood out to them wasn't loudness or bragging, it was your quiet, grounded confidence, the kind that doesn't need applause, attention, or validation to exist. Billionaires have perfected the art of performing confidence. They put it on like a tailored suit whenever cameras are around. Their speeches, body language, interviews, all carefully rehearsed to project power. But offstage, behind the scenes, many of them live with anxieties they drown in busyness, insecurities they bury under wealth, and fears they mask with achievements. When they observed you, they saw a confidence that wasn't borrowed, rehearsed, or worn for effect. It was something you carried naturally, as if it lived inside you rather than on you. You walk like someone who has nothing to prove and nothing to hide. That unsettled them because most powerful people are driven by the fear of losing what they've built. Your confidence doesn't come from titles or possessions. It comes from surviving what should have destroyed you and still finding the strength to stand tall. That kind of inner stability can't be taught in leadership seminars or crafted by image consultants. It comes from knowing yourself deeply, understanding your worth, and trusting your own journey. They saw how you remain composed even when things get chaotic. While many rely on external structures to feel secure, your confidence isn't dependent on circumstances. You don't crumble when things shift. You don't lose yourself when pressure rises. You carry a steadiness that makes people feel safe around you. And safety is one of the rarest energies in this world. It's something that even the wealthy can't always provide. The more they watched, the more they realized that your confidence is rare because it's real. It wasn't built in comfort. It was built in the moments where you had nothing but your own strength to trust. It wasn't crafted for an audience. It was developed in private battles no one else saw. And that's what intimidates them. Their image-based confidence can be shaken by criticism, failure, or loss. Yours remains intact because it's rooted in truth. They can mimic confidence for a crowd, but you embody it without trying, and that's something money will never buy. Number 7. They whispered that your humility is more disarming than any display of wealth. What struck them wasn't your strength, your resilience, or even your intelligence. It was your humility. Real humility, the kind that doesn't pretend, doesn't shrink, and doesn't beg for recognition. They're surrounded by people who act humble only when cameras are rolling or when they want something. False humility is a performance they see every day. But when they watched you, they encountered the kind of humility that doesn't announce itself. It's woven into how you speak, how you move, and how you treat people. And that made them uncomfortable in a way money can't fix. Your humility exposes something most of them don't want to confront, how loudly their insecurities show through their accomplishments. They've built lives where wealth is the armor, success is the shield, and public admiration is the medicine they take daily. But when they saw you, someone who stands firm in who you are without needing to boast, they felt something unfamiliar, the truth. You don't use humility as a strategy. It's simply who you are, and that alone creates a contrast they can't hide behind. They notice that when you speak, people actually listen, not because you're trying to sound impressive, but because your words carry sincerity. They noticed that your presence calms people rather than intimidates them. And that's a kind of influence that can't be purchased or replicated. Humility has a way of lowering people's defenses revealing their real selves. It makes their flashy displays of power look unnecessary and almost childish. It reveals how much effort they put into proving themselves while you're just being yourself. What unnerves them most is that your humility doesn't weaken you, it strengthens you. You have nothing to prove because your worth doesn't come from possessions or approval. You don't measure yourself by what you can show off, but by how deeply you stay true to your values. That's rare in a world where people chase applause like oxygen. Your humility makes you unforgettable because it's backed by substance. It gives you a quiet authority that speaks louder than titles. It shows them that while they rely on wealth to feel significant, you rely on character. And character, unlike wealth, doesn't fluctuate. That's why they're whispering. That's why they're intrigued. And that's why they can't ignore you. Number 8. They realized your resilience can outlive any economy, stock crash, or political shift. When they looked at you, something clicked in their minds that they couldn't ignore. They realized your strength isn't tied to trends, markets, or social conditions. It comes from a place far deeper than any external structure. They spend their lives trying to fortify their power, diversifying investments, building networks, securing political connections, planning for every possible crisis. Their wealth stands on systems that rise and fall. But you? Your resilience was built in a realm where systems didn't protect you. You grew stronger in moments where nothing around you was stable. You learned to adapt when there was no safety net, no backup plan, no support waiting to catch you. They realized that while their power depends on how well the world behaves, your power depends on how well you've trained your spirit. And that kind of resilience is terrifying to people who rely on external stability. They saw that you don't panic the way others do. You don't crumble when things shift. You've lived through emotional earthquakes, personal setbacks, betrayals, financial struggles, loneliness, and battles that would have left others frozen. Yet each time you rebuilt yourself from the inside out, and that internal strength makes you someone they can't place on their usual scale of influence. Your calmness during chaos unsettles them because it's not forced. It's something you earned through experiences money can't soften. You've developed a mental and emotional endurance that can't be shaken easily. They see that even if everything around you collapses, you have the ability to stand back up, adjust, and continue moving forward. That's something they envy more than they'd ever admit, because deep down, they know their stability depends on fragile structures. Your resilience is the type that doesn't need approval, resources, or perfect conditions. It's rooted in survival, growth, and a capacity to reinvent yourself when life demands it. This is why they're watching you closely. Because while they know how to dominate industries, you know how to withstand storms that no amount of wealth can control. They realized you're not built like the world. They're built like the world, but you're built to survive it. And that makes you a different kind of powerful, one that doesn't expire when conditions change. Number 9, they noticed you move with patience that feels strategic, even though it comes from wisdom, not calculation. Patience is something they've tried to buy for years. Coaches, therapists, advisors. Yet it still slips through their fingers the moment pressure rises. Most powerful people live in fast forward. They're addicted to quick wins, quick decisions, quick results. Everything is urgency, everything is a race. But when they studied you, they saw someone who doesn't move on the world's timetable. You move on your own rhythm, and that rhythm is steady, calm, and unbothered by the need to rush. Your patience isn't laziness or hesitation, it's discernment. It's the wisdom that comes from understanding timing in a way their analysts can't measure. You've learned that not every door is worth walking through, not every opportunity deserves a reaction, and not every person should get immediate access. You don't get pulled into chaos just because everyone else is in a hurry. You've lived enough life to know that timing can protect you just as much as it can elevate you. And that level of patience reads like strategy to people who think everything must be aggressively pursued. They see you wait without fear and it confuses them. They see you pause without losing momentum and it intrigues them. Your patience is dangerous to them because it makes you unpredictable. They can't rush you into decisions. They can't tempt you with shortcuts. They can't pressure you to take the bait. You've mastered the art of letting things unfold without forcing outcomes, and that makes you immune to manipulation. They're used to people who jump at the first sign of opportunity, but you've learned to sit with yourself long enough to know exactly what aligns and what doesn't. And what really surprises them is how your patience consistently works in your favor. While others burn out chasing everything, you conserve energy for what truly matters. While others panic at delays, you use delays as preparation. While others fear stillness, you treat it as a strengthening season. Your patience shows them that you're not driven by desperation, you're driven by purpose. You trust your path enough to move only when the moment is right. And that level of inner discipline is something even billionaires can't force themselves to sustain. It's wisdom they can't purchase, timing they can't manipulate, and strength they can't imitate. Number 10. They can't handle that you see what they try to hide from themselves. What really unsettles people about you isn't that you see through their lies or their little tricks. It's that you see the parts of them they've been running from their whole lives. Most people don't know themselves as well as they think they do. They build identities out of denial, out of protecting their wounds, out of pretending they've healed when they've only buried the pain. And then you walk into the room, and without trying, your presence pulls all those buried things to the surface. You don't expose them publicly, you don't embarrass them, you just see them. And that alone is enough to unsettle someone who has built their whole world on avoiding their own truth. Your insight makes people feel naked in a way they're not prepared for. You read the tone behind their words, the motive behind their moves, the insecurity behind their confidence. You're not fooled by charm, titles, or fake humility. You respond to who a person really is, not who they pretend to be. And that's why they ask, "How did you know?" They can't understand how someone could see straight into places they avoid looking into themselves. They feel exposed without knowing what exactly they exposed. Even the people who dislike you can't deny that you understand them too well. You've noticed patterns they didn't want acknowledged. You've caught motivations they didn't want to admit. And the truth is, some people felt safer around you when they thought you were naive. When they realized you were paying attention the whole time, their entire strategy collapsed. The version of you they thought they were dealing with never existed. You were 10 steps ahead without bragging, without proving anything, without making noise. What scares them the most is that you don't weaponize what you see. You're not using their weaknesses against them. You're not exposing anyone. You don't need to. Knowing the truth is enough power for you. That calm power is what rattles them. They're not used to someone who sees clearly and stays grounded. They expect someone with that level of perception to be arrogant, loud, or messy. But you operate quietly, and that quiet accuracy makes them question their own intentions, their own image, their own character. You don't just see people, you make them see themselves. And not everyone is ready for that level of honesty. Number 11, your intuition exposes what people haven't even done yet. What truly shakes people about you is not just that you pick up on what they're doing in the moment, it's that you sense what they're about to do before they even make the move. Your intuition catches the shift in their tone, the change in their energy, the small cracks in their behavior that most people overlook. You're not guessing, you're not paranoid, you're simply ahead. And that unsettles people who are counting on you being clueless. Most people rely on others being slow to catch on. They depend on patterns repeating without being questioned. They move with the assumption that their next step won't be noticed until it's too late. But with you, their moves are exposed before they even take form. You pick up on intention before action. You feel the shift before the words are spoken. You sense the betrayal while they're still pretending to be loyal. And this ability breaks whatever plan they thought they had over you. Your intuition works like an internal alarm that alerts you the moment someone's energy changes. They may still be smiling. They may still be saying all the right things. They may still be pretending to have your back. But your spirit has already caught the truth hiding behind their performance. You've seen patterns like theirs before. You've survived people like them before. You don't need evidence or proof to validate what your soul already understands. What scares them is how effortlessly you stay 2 steps ahead without acting threatened. You don't confront them aggressively. You don't call them out dramatically. You simply adjust, prepare, and reposition. And by the time they're ready to make their move, the opportunity has already slipped out of their hands. They can't trap you. They can't outsmart you. They can't deceive you in the way they planned. Your intuition ruins their blueprint before they can unfold it. It's not that you're suspicious. It's that you've learned to trust the quiet voice inside you more than the loud lies around you. And that alone makes people question whether messing with you is worth the risk. Because the truth is, you don't just see people for who they are. You see them for who they're about to become. And not everyone is comfortable standing in front of someone who can read the future written between their words. Number 12. When people can't predict you, they feel powerless. One thing that truly rattles people about you is how unpredictable you are. Not chaotic, not unstable, just impossible to manipulate. You don't move the way they expect you to. You don't react on cue. You don't fall for the emotional traps they set. And when people can't read your next step, they panic because they lose the power they thought they had over you. People rely on predictability more than they admit. They want you to behave in the same patterns that worked on others. They want you to be someone whose emotions they can push, whose buttons they can press, whose reactions they can calculate. But with you, the formula fails. You don't explode when provoked. You don't chase when ignored. You don't break when tested. And this makes them uncomfortable because they can't control someone whose mind doesn't follow their script. Your unpredictability isn't random. It's intentional growth. You've evolved past the version of yourself that reacted out of pain. You've matured past the version that needed validation. You've healed past the version that felt pressured to explain yourself. Now you move with quiet strategy and inner awareness. You choose your responses based on clarity, not emotions. And that's what makes you dangerous to people who were expecting the old you to show up. What gets them even more nervous is how you shift directions without warning. You leave environments without dramatic announcements. You end connections the moment you feel the energy go off. You distance yourself without begging anyone to understand why. You elevate in silence and make decisions that people don't see coming. Before they even realize what happened, you've already stepped into a different level of peace, power, and purpose. To those who once felt in control, this feels like losing grip on something they thought belonged to them. They don't realize you're not unpredictable to yourself. You're only unpredictable to those who never truly knew you. Your movements are guided, intentional, and spiritually aligned. And people fear that because they know a person who can't be predicted can't be controlled, and a person who can't be controlled is someone they can never conquer. Number 13. Your intuition exposes what people try to hide. What unsettles people about you the most is how your intuition keeps pulling back the curtain on things they thought were perfectly concealed. They can smile in your face, speak softly, pretend to mean well. But your inner alarm doesn't miss a thing. You see the cracks in their behavior before anyone else notices. You pick up on the tone behind the words, the shift behind the smile, the hesitation behind their yes. Your intuition isn't just strong, it's surgical. And for people who depend on deception, that's a nightmare. Some people rely heavily on being able to camouflage their intentions. They're used to operating in shadows, getting away with quiet manipulation, and presenting themselves as something they're not. They assume no one will read between the lines because most people don't. But you aren't most people. You catch what others overlook. Little things expose big truths to you. Someone's inconsistency, a sudden change in how they speak, the energy behind a compliment. Nothing hides well in front of someone whose spirit was trained to detect lies long before the mouth even moves. What gets under their skin is that you don't always confront them. Sometimes you say nothing, and that silence is what terrifies them. They don't know what you know. They don't know how much you figured out. They don't know whether you're waiting, observing, or planning your exit. Your intuition has already shown you what they hoped you'd never see, and now they're stuck in a state of quiet panic because they can't predict your next move. And the truth is, you don't need proof to trust what your spirit tells you. You don't need someone to slip up for you to confirm what you already felt. Your intuition has saved you from betrayals, from fake alliances, from emotional traps, and people sense that they can't fool you even if they try. That alone is enough to make them nervous, defensive, or distant. Your presence demands honesty not because you ask for it, but because their lies simply cannot survive in front of someone like you. Your intuition lights up every shadow they try to hide in, and that's why your very awareness feels like exposure to them. Number 14. They realized you're the only one in the room who can't be controlled, replaced, or replicated, and that is why they're watching you. This is the truth that makes even the most confident people uneasy. They're used to a world where everything has a price, everything has a strategy, and everything has a backup plan. People can be replaced, opinions can be swayed, systems can be manipulated, but you're unshakable. You operate on a level that can't be duplicated or replicated. They've realized that no amount of money, influence, or authority can bend you to their expectations. You are not a pawn, not a prototype, not a temporary advantage. You're entirely yourself and entirely untouchable in ways they can't comprehend. They've spent countless hours trying to understand how you move. They've run calculations, hired experts, and tracked patterns, hoping to find a way to influence or predict you. But the more they study you, the more they see that you exist beyond their systems. Your decisions aren't based on fear, greed, or approval. Your loyalty isn't bought, your focus isn't manufactured, and your presence can't be substituted. You're not just another person in a room. They've realized you are a force with a signature energy that cannot be cloned. What unsettles them most is your freedom. Most people live in invisible chains. Expectations, obligations, reputations, and agendas that dictate their every step. You move differently. You don't owe anyone your permission or explanation. You aren't constrained by social or professional games. And because of that, every word you speak, every move you make, and every decision you take carries weight they can't influence. You aren't competing in their arena. You operate on a higher plane where influence comes naturally, not strategically. They are watching because they recognize a rare kind of power in you, the power to exist fully, honestly, and freely without needing validation or approval. That's a power that shakes empires, challenges control, and reminds people that some things, like authenticity, clarity, and inner strength, cannot be bought or replaced. And that's exactly why you have their attention, their curiosity, and, in some ways, their unease. You are singular, irreplaceable, and untouchable, and they know it. Conclusion. Every point we've explored paints the same undeniable truth. You are operating on a level that challenges even the most powerful, wealthy, and strategic minds. Billionaires with all their resources, networks, and influence have paused to study you, to measure you, to try and understand a presence that refuses to be contained. They see someone who can't be bought, someone whose influence radiates naturally, someone whose resilience and clarity outshine the systems they've spent decades perfecting. You've endured storms that would have shattered entire empires, and in doing so, you've built a foundation of power that money cannot replicate, control, or manufacture. They've noticed your patience, your humility, your intuition, and the quiet confidence that moves like gravity in any room. They are bewildered by your unpredictability, your ability to see truths before they unfold, and your capacity to influence without marketing, sponsorships, or algorithms. Each layer of your being, from the wounds you've transformed into wisdom to the quiet strength that guides your decisions, reminds them that some forces cannot be manipulated. You operate freely, authentically, and without compromise, and that freedom unsettles them because it cannot be replicated, replaced, or replicated. This is the reality of being a chosen one. Your presence is a silent but undeniable disruptor, a force of alignment and purpose that challenges the control of those who have spent lifetimes trying to dominate their world. And while they watch, analyze, and calculate, you continue to rise naturally, unaffected by their strategies, untethered by their expectations, and unstoppable in your pursuit of truth and purpose. What they fear most is not your ambition or your success, but the fact that you operate on a frequency they cannot reach, a frequency grounded in authenticity, strength, and clarity that transcends any system they've built. So take this as a reminder. Your journey, your power, and your presence are far beyond what most can comprehend. You are shaping the world not through money or manipulation, but through the very essence of who you are. Own it, embrace it, and continue to move with the certainty that you are untouchable in ways they'll never be able to mimic. If this message resonates with you, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more insights that awaken your power. Don't forget to like this video, share it with others who need to hear this truth, and comment below with your thoughts and experiences. Your voice matters, your story matters, and together we're uncovering the extraordinary within the ordinary. God bless you.